You excited about doing this?
Yeah.
So what time's your flight leave?
I don't know. 5:45?
Why don't you tell the people about the story?
Was that thing on? I hate when that thing's on. So we were having lunch, hanging out, talking about projects, talking about all the good stuff that we're working on and getting good stuff, you know, the DVD almost ready and all that. And I was thinking, oh man, so I'm fly out at 8:30 today, and which means we've got plenty of time. We're shooting a new intro video for our website, and of course shooting Q&A Saturday, and we were going to hopefully shoot some rants, which I don't think we'll have time to do, because I asked Laura to check, to double check, because as good as I am at certain things, there's other things, certain detail things that tend to get by me. And she quickly checked my my flight record and found out that it wasn't 8:30 that I was leaving, it was 5:45, which means
We don't have much time.
we don't have much time. So this is going to be an express train of Q&A Saturday. It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be great,
it's going to be
of course.
high energy,
As always.
good stuff,
Yep.
but it's going to be brief. And you know what? I think there's people like, who is it?
Arya.
Arya, this might be his favorite
The
episode.
best episode he's ever
Arya's
seen.
like, woohoo!
It's like the biggest good he.
Is it
yeah,
he?
That's right.
Yeah, Arya is going to be pleased about this.
Beautiful
So
name, Arya.
there's going to be some give and take. Some
Yeah.
folks are going to be upset.
Some people hate us, some people love us.
No one hates us.
You don't think so?
No, how could they hate us? But your dry cleaner might hate you.
I know.
That's about it.
Covered in hair. So we didn't do much prep with the makeup, didn't do much prep with anything. So
It's natural, right?
it's a natural look.
Right.
All right.
I think you look lovely,
Thank you.
so you'll still get to hold your title,
Okay.
even in your natural state, right?
Let's hit it.
Hey everybody, it's Sean from The Good Dog, and this right here, slightly made up, is the still radiant and lovely Laura Morgan. Ah. And all this good stuff, which she always hates that I say, all this good stuff is the Good Dog's Q&A. Saturday. Q&A
episode
Saturday.
number
How do we do
60.
it? Oh, boom.
2.
Look at that. Am I coming along or what?
You are.
I'm coming along.
Definitely.
Right. I've been using flashcards.
Oh my gosh.
It's been really helping me to kind of put this high mathematical stuff together.
Question number 1.
And there we go.
You've got a plane to catch.
All right.
Question number 1 comes
Yeah.
from Brian. Brian says, can you demonstrate how you hold and control the remote? I'm finding it difficult to comfortably and sensitively control the dial while pushing the button and controlling my dog with the other hand.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for the newbie question.
Brian, that is an awesome question, whether you're a newbie or not. So I've got a little
Mini
a little mini educator. I was going to say a little receiver. And so here's a quick thing. It really depends like how you set the buttons up, right? I think for us, as far as the ergonomics of this, if you're using this in a typical setting, like I'll even hit this button here, like I'm going to do it like this. Continuous. If you've got it set up, I don't know if you can see it like this or not. It'll be blurry.
Yeah.
Basically what you've got is you've got continuous, and you've got, so continuous regular is here, continuous boost is here, right? The red button. Hit it again, and then we've got M and C, which is what we're looking for. Hit it again, and then you've got momentary. Basically, once again, that sets these buttons up to where the black button is your main button, red button is your boost. Once again, hit the button, M and C, I always say to the clients, which to Laura's chagrin, I just say like, think of MC Hammer. So it's just it's a good way for everybody to remember that you want to see M and C on here, and the reason is because that's how it sets up your buttons, right? So what it does is it creates an organic way of dialing to where your red button is your primary button rather than the black button. So you may be having problems, Brian, if you're trying, and I'm hoping you can see all this, is if you're trying to hold the black button, right, and dial, it can be a bit of an awkward kind of situation. But conversely, if you're holding the red button, right, then the way it sets your hand, it's really hard to do like this, but the way it sets your hand, hopefully this is in frame, with the red button, now we've got all this room to be able to dial, and our fingers work much nicer like this.
Reach it out to us so we can see it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So let me see if I can do this, right? So Red button, your hand looks like this. This is how I hold it. Fingertip right on the red button. It's organically dialed. It's at M and C, if you can focus that in. That's imperative because we don't use boost. So it sets your hand up like this really comfortably. If you see your index finger, right? Index and thumb are set up right here to be able to dial however you want to. But if you're using this button over here, then that moves your whole hand up and everything becomes awkward up here. I'm telling you, I've got like pretty like normal sized hands, but it's really hard for me to do. So I don't know how you have your e-collar set up, but I'd highly suggest that you go to M and C, get away from boost, because I think boost is the devil. I think boost is really like not a great thing. And then middle finger on the red button, rest the hand up like this, and then you can be able to press and hold and then dial up at your leisure. So if that's not how you're doing it, I'd highly suggest you do that. And then just spend some time like while you're watching TV, just like get a feel. Each one of these, you know, like the dial as it breaks in will get a little bit more sensitive or a teeny bit more loose and move a little bit more freely. So just get a feel for it. And after a while, it'll be second nature and you won't even think about it. But I think the button setup is really pivotal. If you've got the black button as your primary, I can barely do it. It makes this really awkward. So hopefully that helps. Next question is Heather.
Question number 2 comes from Miss Heather Gardy. Heather says, have you ever used the clicker tool for training?
The old clicker.
If so, what is the proper and most useful way to use it to train?
Okay, so Heather, I actually used the clicker early on in my career. It sounds like I'm like 100 years old in my earlier stage of my life. With my guys early on, right? You guys saw the Junior just turned 16. So when Junior and Oakley were younger, and then eventually when I got Belle, I started to do some clicker stuff. I really started off in the positive world, just reading all reward-based stuff and all that kind of information. And all that stuff seemed great. And I was like, cool, let's go with this. If I can just like treat and da-da-da-da and everything's great, awesome. So I went to go use the clicker, and first of all, before I even jump into that, let me just state what the clicker is. The clicker might seem like a complex thing, or the concept might seem complex, but it's just a marker. If you can really just narrow it down to a very simple concept, it's a marker that once you load the clicker, and the way you load the clicker is by like giving food, click, giving food, click, giving food, click, right? Once you load it up like that, then now the marker has value. So now the dog is thinking, okay, cool, when I hear this click, or actually I might have said it backwards, click and then food, click and then food. I think I'm saying it backwards because I'm in such a rush.
I can't remember.
But it doesn't matter.
All right.
But the main point is if you want to research it, look up loading the clicker. I haven't done it in a million years because I don't use it. But the concept is that that clicker now has value, that when your dog hears the click, it marks a moment in time that they did something that you like, and then they get rewarded with food, right? So think of it in really simple terms. It's a marker, but the thing is, we just use verbal markers, right? So we use good. A lot of trainers use yes. And the reason is because then you've always got your hands free. You don't have a clicker in your hand. You've always got your mouth with you, hopefully, and that means that you can very easily communicate with your dog whenever you need to with less tools, right? Here's another flip side of this, for an extra component. Like my big dog Oakley was like a 93-pound monster, was terrified of the clicker. You click it and he'd run out of the house. And so like they said, well, tape it up. And so I taped it up and he was still like, ah, you know, and you think a clicker would be pretty benign even if you're pairing it with food. But it wasn't benign for him. And so I stopped using the clicker just because my dog was terrified of it. And yeah, which is something you don't hear about a lot. They're like, the clickers are, you know, the softest, easiest. But mainly, I just want to close this out by saying, yes, I have used it before. I didn't find a real necessity for it because I found, and I know people will argue this point, that the clicker is very precise and that it's always consistent in tone to where it's easier for the dog. But honestly, I find that verbal markers work like a charm, and they're much easier because there's less gear in your hand. You always have your mouth to be able to communicate with your dog. So you hear us, if you watch any of our videos, you'll always hear us say like place, good, down, good. Those aren't just rewards, those are markers, right? You could say place, yes, you know, down, yes, and just let the dog know. And if you're rewarding with food, then he knows that that marker means that he's going to get paid for that. So that's kind of the concept behind the clicker. We don't use it. We use verbal markers a ton. They help out a lot in the learning process, and then we fade the verbal markers once the dog really understands what's cooking, what's going on. So you don't need to use a clicker in order to train that way, but a lot of people really like it. A lot of people like the consistency. So I'd say if you're interested, check it out. Fly to Flagpole, see what you think. And there's a ton of books on it, so you can kind of like, you know, find your own way. But I would say, like, you don't need it. You can definitely use verbal markers and have awesome success with dogs.
Cool.
Cool.
Thank you. Okay, question.
And just to clarify, I did say it backwards because I'm like so like frazzled,
okay, yeah.
right? So it's like click, treat, click, treat, click, treat. Yeah.
You said treat, click, click.
Right.
But I could always fix that in editing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you'll make me look good no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, question number 3 is from Mary. Mary says, prong collar fitting question. Our 55 to 60 pound dog has a 14-inch neck and we purchased the 3.0, which is the medium, but when fitted it has 4 or 5 prongs depending on tightness. Wondering if the 2.25, the small, would be a better choice because there's more prongs. He's not paying attention like we would like on the 3.0.
Yeah.
Also, how do you get the dog to watch you and not the environment? He sees birds, squirrels, deer, butterflies, etc., but he's not really watching me.
It goes back to my old usual standby, which is the blindfold. There's only one way to make sure that he doesn't look at those butterflies.
Just blindfold him.
Blindfold him.
All right, question
Right?
number 4.
Anyways, actually, where are you off to, young lady? Okay, so so here's the thing. This is actually supposed to be Laura's secret surprise question. So she just scampered away. Let's see if she scampers back in. This is your secret surprise question, by the way. Yeah, she might have seen it and been like, I gotta go. All right, so she wants to know between it. She's struggling a little bit with the 3.0 and 2.25.
Yeah, I personally prefer the 3.0, the mediums.
That's
so
the way.
yeah, so even if you get more prongs, I don't really see the difference, especially if your dog's kind of tuned out and a little bit more on the environment. I find especially with like a stronger dog, like stronger dog meaning like not a small dog.
Right, a heavier dog.
A heavier,
yeah, bigger dog.
That there seems to be like almost like a give with the 2.25 on
Absolutely,
a prong.
yeah.
So like I'm working with 2 little dachshunds right now, and 2.25 are perfect. I wouldn't go any bigger than that.
Yeah.
And it fits. It's perfect, but they're dachshunds. They're this big. So what I would say for you is just purchase a mini educator e-collar and do our FUSA video, or you can buy our new e-collar DVD coming out in a couple weeks, or watch our free video on our YouTube channel that is our FUSA, the GSD, doing e-collar heel, and see, see like how we do e-collar heel with her, and then you can do the same thing with your dog, especially if there's a lot of stuff going on in the environment that you want her to stop, you want your dog to stop focusing on.
Right. So I'll just add to that. So I agree with everything that Laura just said. The 2.25 is great for small dogs, but we definitely feel when you start to get into larger, heavier dogs that there's give, even though there's more prongs, right? I get the logic, there's more prongs, but they actually give because the gauge is thinner and smaller. And so both of us, I mean, a lot of people like use smaller prongs on most of the dogs, and both of us are really adamant about like there's a big difference in the effect. So no, you don't have a lot of prongs on your dog, but those prongs are probably doing a better job of communicating to your dog. So I would take a look at like the mechanics that you're actually utilizing with it. There's if you don't want to do the e-collar stuff that Laura said, there's a really great video I've got on YouTube. I think it's called Intro to Prong Collar, and it's not about sizing and fitting it. It's about me actually working with the dog for the first time with the prong collar, and it shows like 180s and the corrections and all that stuff. And I think it's Nola, good memory. So that video right there will give you some really good insights in how to actually, because you might just be having a mechanics problem, like where you're being too soft or you're not popping early enough, you're not doing stuff like that. And then the one last thing I close out on, even though I'm totally like hijacking your question, is that a lot of times dogs don't look at us, right? So we don't teach like some crazy like focused heel where the dog's always up like this. But if the dog's scanning around like maniacally, that's something that I'd want to correct and want to address. But you also have to understand like dogs are dogs, and there's going to be times where they're like interested in other things.
Yeah.
So we can ask more of them, but we also have to acknowledge some piece of this being like, okay, dogs are like seeing squirrels and things like
Yeah,
that, and
dogs.
even great dogs are going to be like, yeah, I'm born with prey drive
Right.
because have you seen who my uncle is?
Right.
My uncle's like Uncle Timberwolf out there. So
And if you do end up doing e-collar heel, if you decide to go that route, you can do the smaller prong collar because you're not relying on the prong collar so much.
yeah,
So-
and just to close up, so when we send any of our board and train clients home, they all go home on 2.25, but
Yeah.
that's only because the e-collar is their primary tool. So if you do what this smart lady's advice was and go to e-collar stuff, then you can use a 2.25, but you won't be using the prong for anything but backup.
Yep.
So hopefully that helps.
Cool. Thanks. Okay, question number 4 comes from Bethany Wilson Davison.
She's back.
It's me again, she says, 2 in a row. It's a general question that can absolutely be skipped, and I can ask again later if there's lots of pressing issues. All right, we got you though. With every client, I explain the issues with too much affection, creating excitement and making it harder for the dog to learn and understand its place in life. And each dog is different. You're petting, encouraging a state of mind, etc. I recently had someone brand new to this concept and found myself explaining it 5 different ways before he thought he had a handle on it. Maybe I was just having an off day explaining, but I'd love to hear your general breakdown on how do you explain to people the dangers of too much affection and why. Even though I've heard bits and pieces of this advice before, a lot from you guys, I'd love to have a clean and crisp answer for this that most people understand, because I tend to ramble if someone doesn't stop me.
Okay, so I've been known to ramble occasionally.
Welcome to the club,
Welcome to
Bethany.
the family, Bethany.
Right
okay,
at home.
okay, so this is a complex one, right? So the affection thing, I think the reason why you ramble, and I think the reason why maybe it's not always easy for clients to get is because it's complicated. It's hard. It doesn't always resonate and make sense, no matter how clever or well thought out your explanation is, because the heart stuff with people about their dogs, and then saying that heart stuff of like loving, caring for their dogs, and the way they go about that could be detrimental, is something that's really hard for people to wrap their heads around.
Yeah.
So just start from that place of like giving yourself a little break, a little space, a little understanding, knowing that like it's a hard gig. Doesn't matter, all of us, it's a hard gig. Now, we've worked on coming up with some ideas and concepts that I think are pretty solid. I don't know if they're gonna be crisp. So I'm going to read through. I wrote a few notes down here for you. So I always try and get across to clients that make sure you use affection to help, not to harm. And that sounds kind of heavy, but it's like make sure that if the dog is struggling with a behavior, don't lay the affection on the dog so the dog's more overwhelmed and struggling. Be low key, right? You know what I mean? So this is like a practical application, right? You tell the dog to go to place, and then the owner's like, goodbye, goodbye, and then the dog breaks place and gets corrected for it, right? So let's make sure that the affection is something that helps the dog to succeed. It's like if you're taking a test and I'm standing behind you going, you're gonna kick butt on this test, oh, you're the best. You're like, I can't focus on my work. You might get up and run away too. So making sure that the affection is geared towards not just like people get into this thing, dog did good boy, dog did good boy, and they think that they're reinforcing always the right thing, but what happens is it adds energy and excitement, and then the dog's brain gets scrambled, and then the dog messes up, and then the dog gets corrected. So that's one thing. Affection tells a powerful story about who you are and the position you want to play in your dog's life. That's a really important one, right? So we get a ton of clients that show up that have geared themselves primarily in an affectionate kind of direction with their dog, which is told a powerful story of, I want to play the position of just being your buddy or your lover or your confidant, friend, but not somebody who's going to set rules or boundaries and especially enforce those rules and boundaries. The affection makes it very hard, especially with certain dogs, to take you serious, and then you just go down the rabbit hole. You go down like the kind of disrespect rabbit hole where owners give way too much soft stuff and not enough balance of the firm stuff. Dogs, just being dogs, take advantage of it, and then everything kind of falls apart. So that's another thing. What you pet is what you get. It's an old saw you've probably heard before, and that's basically making sure that people aren't rewarding things that they don't want to see more of, right? So dogs jumping up shouldn't get pet. Dogs, like growling at people shouldn't be like, that's a good boy, stop growling, Uncle Sammy really likes you, anything like that. I don't know who Uncle Sammy is, but I'm sure he's a nice guy.
Nice guy.
So what you pet is what you get is another kind of like that resonates with a lot of people because it's really simple. So a lot of folks get that and they're like, oh crap. So if I pet bad stuff, I get more bad stuff. And if I pet good stuff, like in a limited fashion, I might get more good stuff. Like I'm still not a big believer in like rewarding every single thing because it adds energy and excitement. It creates a hard time for the dog. So what you pet is what you get. And then different dogs, this is really important. Different dogs allow different levels of affection and interaction and softness to be exchanged without, or I should say, with some creating far more fallout and some you get a lot more latitude, right? So if you ever do a session with us, I always tell just about every client that comes through that like my girl Belle, you could spoon and cuddle and lay soft affection with her, you know, on her all day long and you'd have zero fallout because her attitude is so sweet, submissive, and easy. Now you do that with other dogs, like even Junior, my other guy who just turned 16, and I would have had a wreck on my hands. He would have.
You did.
Well, yeah, I did. So the personality dynamic, which a lot of people don't look at, is they just kind of see one size fits all, and this is how we deal with dogs. But like you have to be very selective. Like, how does this dog respond to affection? Does it make him disrespect me? Does it make him misbehave? Does it make him too excited, right? What do I get from it? Laura had a dog that if she would allow on the bed, he would try and bite her the next day, right? So like, that's not even like major affection, but it's like, it's a breach of like, for certain dogs, blurring the lines. Yeah. So, but it's so important because you can do that with Hercules and have zero problems.
Totally
you can
fine.
do it with,
CJ.
the CJ over here, I was going to call him Chauncey. And it's just a clever name. And she wouldn't have any problems either, right? So it's really important when you're sharing this information with people that when you give one size fits all, it can be hard for people because people are smart and they've seen like, well, but I did it with this dog back in the past and I didn't have a problem. So make sure it's very dog specific and what response they see from the dog. And then of course it creates associations of excitement with the human, which can make everything hard. So that makes dogs jump, reactive. You know, if dogs are excited just in your presence because you've done a ton of this stuff, then obviously that's going to cause problems when you're trying to get good behavior out of them. And just this one just popped into my mind. Of course, the one that comes up so often is it creates tons of separation anxiety for so many dogs. They become very needy, like drug addicts to that affection. And then when it's not present, they're really uncomfortable and really stressed out. So I know I've got to catch a flight, so I'm done with that.
All right. Thanks, Bethany. Okay, question number 5
Maria.
comes from Maria. Maria says, I have an 8-month-old Dogo Argentino and a 2-year-old Pitty. They get along great. I feed them at the same time. They always end up eating from one bowl. Then they both move on to the next bowl. I watch them and never see tense body posture or growling, but am I at risk of causing future food fights? They have to sit before they get their food. I've always been able to reach my hand in. I hand feed them once a week just to keep them from developing problems with food.
Yep, that's great.
Right.
So it's not great.
Not great, no.
But it's a great question. So, Cujo, Chauncey, drop that. Okay, so real quick, Maria, I would definitely not let bull sharing going on. Or let bull sharing go on.
I thought you were going to say like
bullshit. Right? It sounds like I was going to say that. You might have to bleep that out. That's a hard one to say. I would absolutely not, because I can't tell you how many times I've seen clients show up to us that have had like, what happens with dogs is slow, subtle arcs of changes, right? Everything's rosy, everything's great, and then one day one dog's a little snippy, one dog's not in the best mood, and one dog goes after the other dog for getting in the bowl or sharing the bowl or feeling competitive, and then you get this little breach, boom, and then it starts to happen and snowball and snowball. And next thing you've got out and out fights. Now, I don't want to be scareful. I don't want to be imparting a bunch of fearful stuff and frighten you. There's always exceptions to the rules, but boy, is that something I would not do. It's so easy with food stuff to accidentally create tension. And you may not even see it with food. You might see it in other places. I mean, it can come out in a whole host of issues. So I would definitely say, ixnay on the sharing of the bowls. Just let them eat their own stuff, and then like After they've cleared out, if they want to go lick the other bowl when the other dog's gone, that's a different story. Like my dogs do the same thing, but no one is allowed in each other's bowl when when the primary guy is there. So that's one. And then, yeah, and then the other part is that there's an anxiety issue going on with your 2-year-old, not your 2-year-old, but the niece showing up. And that's really on you. I don't want to be heavy with you, but like you said that she does a lot of hugging, kissing. I don't know if it's her or one of the other kids actually bit one of the dogs. And that's not cool, right? So you're seeing your dog Reese be anxious. The reason Reese is anxious is because Reese is uncomfortable. So just get that super clearly across your mind. Your dog is uncomfortable because it's around an energy in a child and a behavior that it doesn't know what to do and it doesn't feel safe. So I know you're putting them away after the anxiety raises, just put Reese, boy or girl, put Reese away as soon as that child is going to come over or other kids are going to come over, unless you're going to advocate completely 100% and say, like, you know, lay down the law. No one is allowed to hug the dogs. No one's allowed to kiss. What you described to me is the exact perfect storm, and I'm not being hard with you, but what you described to me is the exact perfect storm for kids getting bitten. We see it all the time. Face bites, other stuff from great dogs, dogs that are awesome dogs, dogs that would never want to hurt anybody, but stress levels raise, they get super anxious, and then a kid makes a bad move, and then you got a bite, and then you've got a dog.
Got a biting dog that needs to be put down.
So there's the cool thing about what you shared is that there's a lot of ways to avoid trouble. But if you don't, I'm concerned. So dogs don't get to share bowls, and either put Reese away or advocate and lay down the law. You don't have to be nasty, but like kids hugging dogs, boy, is that the
Let's not do that.
first class ticket to face bites. So cool. Hope that helps.
Be careful. Okay, guys, we've got question number 6, right? Mark says, hey, Sean and Laura, love the show and appreciate all the free advice you give out here.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. I have a 2-year-old Great Dane, which we rescued a year ago. Duke has been on Prong e-collar for 4 weeks now, and the results are fantastic.
Awesome, Mark.
All the basics are great, and I've been doing duration work. The only issue I'm still having is dog reactivity on walks, specifically with other dogs on leashes. I'm able to control him when seeing other dogs in yards. A mid-level correction would usually have him drop back and heel, and we're great. But when he meets a dog head-on, I'm just not able to stay ahead of his escalation. He breaks and lunges at the other dog. I'm using the mini educator and stepping the correction levels up to the point where he's audible, although there's more room on the dial. My question is, this guy, are you a trainer? Like, my question is, should I be raising my correction levels and correcting very hot at the first sign of escalating, or is there something else you'd recommend? I live in a rural area and usually only meet one other dog on an average walk. We don't have sidewalks, so it's hard to get separation between the dogs.
Gotcha. Okay, Mark, so we're jamming here to catch this flight. So you're likely, and I can't say for sure, but what we see probably 99% of the time with owners is, I always say, too low, too slow. So you're probably catching the beginning sequence just a shade late, and you're probably too low on the e-collar. So what tends to happen is the chasing, right? So what I just described was like capping, hitting heavier early in the sequence versus chasing, which is your dog, you correct, your dog escalates, you correct, your dog escalates, and it keeps raising up until you're at high levels and your dog's vocalizing, but none of it means anything. You lost your moment once that all starts to transpire. So the trick is really, what I would do with your dog, and what we do with any of the reactive dogs that can't look at other dogs without loading, is that they're on e-collar heel, walking down the street. The moment they look at the other dog, no, nice firm correction at the furthest, most early beginning stage of the sequence starting, right? And a lot of people are like, but he just looked. How do I, like, no. If he can't look at dogs in a way that doesn't cause an escalation, then he's not allowed to look at dogs yet. And I know that can fly in the face of a lot of other, training approaches, and that we're going to create negative associations. Haven't seen it yet. A lot of dogs have come through, haven't seen it yet. All I've seen are dogs get better and better and better. So what I would say is definitely go hotter, but go way earlier. Don't let your dog look at other dogs. And when your dog, maybe 6 months, a year down the line, is rocking and rolling and able to walk past every dog like an angel, maybe then you can start to look at, like, let me see how he does when he looks at dogs. But you have to, like, extinguish that habit. And that habit right now is so strong and so strong and so strong. So the e-collar, no matter how high you go, if you move too slow on getting up there, it's really worthless and you
Yeah.
kind of lost your moment.
Yeah.
So go hotter and go way earlier on it, and literally don't let your dog look. And that looks like this. You're walking, your dog goes like this, no. Your dog goes, whoa, crap, I'm not allowed to look.
Yeah.
Tries again, raise up, no. Like early.
Yeah.
Do not let your dog stare. If he can't stare, he can't load and he can't react. So.
And also use space.
But
So,
problem is, he says he has a hard time with space because there's
Yeah.
no sidewalks.
well, do your best to use space.
Yeah. I mean, like, but that's the first thing I thought too. I was like,
Yeah.
you got to use space.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you said it's kind of a struggle for
Yeah.
you. But whatever you can do, even if it's a foot or two, definitely helps.
Yeah.
But
Or stopping, moving off the side, stopping so you can not have to do it in motion. You can control,
Yeah.
you know, as you're stopped. But yeah, you sound great. Sounds like you're gonna get over.
you're gonna
this.
figure it out. Yeah. But I think, like, honestly, when it comes down to sorting this stuff out, it's almost always a timing issue and a level issue, and they're almost always too low and too slow.
Yeah.
So rock with that, and then get back to us and let us know how it goes.
Cool. Thanks. Okay, question number 7. We're rocking.
We're getting there.
This is from Brienne.
Brienne.
Brienne says, hello, I have a German Shepherd who is dog reactive and pulls to walk ahead of me while on walks. I use
Yeah.
a prong and she still tries to walk ahead.
Yes.
I use the technique as shown in one of your videos for the prong collar. When we walk past houses with dogs outside in their fences, typically they start to bark and run along the fence. Once she sees them, she begins to ignore me and bark and try to lunge at them. However, I've started using a Pet Zoom Sonic pet trainer when we approach dogs in their fence and when I see her about to react. I would love to be able to go on nice walks with her and eventually start running. Any advice would be wonderful. Thanks.
Okay, Brienne, I'm going to jam right into this. So while prong collars are great, and we recommend them a ton, whenever we have reactive dogs, we always go to e-collar. And if you've seen the show before, you probably heard us like ad nauseum, like with reactive dogs, go to e-collar. And the reason is because you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. You're going to get a lot more de-escalation.
Yep.
You're going to get, like, prong collars can lift dogs up. Doesn't always happen, but it can definitely lift reactive dogs up. They feel that pull, that constriction, and then they get juiced up, stuff like that. So I'm actually going to borrow, like, I actually wrote it before Laura even said it, but tells you how much we mind read. But what I would suggest is you get an e-collar and that you watch the first video for e-collar heel, which if you just go to our The Good Dog Training YouTube, and type in
Or it's actually, we have folders now in our YouTube. So you can go to our YouTube channel and we
Oh,
have
right.
a folder that says
Oh, you got
free
fancy.
how-to training
You got
videos.
fancy with it.
Yeah, yo.
So that's what I would do, and I'd really like to clarify for you that, like, prong collars with reactive dogs definitely have limitations. There's a reason every single board and trained dog that goes home on e-collar on the walks, because we used to try and just do prong stuff, and sometimes we could make it happen, but owners would struggle, and that's when we changed everything over to every dog goes home on e-collar and a prong, right? 2.25, e-collar on, and then go out and kick butt. But watch that Fusa video, watch it back and forth and really get it solid, understand. I mean, if you want to really resolve this, and then once you've got that nailed down after a week or so of really creating an immaculate heel, then start correcting with it, which is a quick tap at a higher level for your dog starting to escalate. And just like my answer to, what was it, Mark a second ago, I'd go back and listen to the answer I just gave Mark, which is all about, like, correcting earlier in the sequence with a firmer level. It can be hard, your dog's like noisy, might be like vocalizing, all that kind of stuff. A lot of that just comes from arousal stuff. But you got to get in there and use a tool that's actually going to help your dog come down. And the prong collar can have a lot of limitations. So that is the recommendation for you, Miss Brienne.
Thanks, Brienne. Okay, question number 8 comes from Laura. Beautiful name. Hi, Sean and Laura. Do you use a treadmill for your board and train dogs? If so, how do you get them used to it for the first time?
Okay, Laura. So while we have one, it collects mostly dust. We don't use it a ton. We used to use it a lot back in the day.
And if a client wants it specifically, we always do that.
Look, give me a second to get down there. So we used to use it a lot. And if you watch any of our old videos, I think some of those we've kind of like actually deleted some of the old ones from Costello.
We have a couple,
But we've got some new ones, right? So So let me see if I can get there. So we used to use the treadmill a lot, and I think a lot of trainers were using it, and we just kind of like, let's check it out, let's see what we get. We found some benefits with like some of the fearful stuff, being able to desensitize the dogs to it. But what we really found is that over the course of time, the results we were getting from treadmill work weren't really that beneficial for us. And that doesn't mean that other people using it like to slam them or that it's not worthwhile. Just for us, we found that like calming exercises and really getting the dog like out of like hyper gear and into low key gear. Even everybody's like, you got to exercise the dog. We found that yes, exercise is important, but calming exercises, impulse control, doggy meditation is way more important, and we get way better results than we did with dogs just on the treadmill. So that said, if owners want it, we will definitely train it for the owners. And what else was I going to say? Where was she at? She was here.
If the owner wants it,
right. Yeah, if the owner wants it. But then the other thing I was going to say is you asked how, and that's if you go to the Good Dog Training on YouTube, there's several different treadmill introduction DVDs videos that you can check out where I actually introduce a dog for the first time. And there's one of them I was really problematic and challenging, so that's a good one. You can also check Jeff Gelman, Blake Rodriguez, Tyler Muto, and check out everybody's and Ted Epithemiitis, if you can spell that, and then see how everybody trains to get on the treadmill, and then make choices about what sounds good to you. But we don't use them so much anymore. Cool.
All right, guys. So we have question number 9 comes from Iron Shamrock 710.
And his name is Spencer.
Spencer.
I like Iron Shamrock.
Yeah, I love that. Hi guys, I have a 1.5-year-old cattle dog mix and she's quite fearful, but always picks flight over fight. I've been doing leash and prong work and we've gone from ADHD walks with pulling and lunging excitedly at other dogs to walking past most strangers and dogs with no problem. I just started e-collar training and thanks to Laura mentioning the thick hair prongs, we finally are making progress. I love those things. When we found those, I was like, oh my gosh,
we don't have to shave dogs.
I just hate contact issues. It's like, oh.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah. So my question is, what's the best way to work her through noises that scare her, like a car driving over a manhole or through puddles, central AC in my house, or my surround sound system in my living room? Fancy pants.
Yeah.
Would flooding be appropriate for some of these things? Thanks in advance. It's like the sound of a Ferrari that I
right. She's terrified of my Testarossa. I don't know what to do.
That?
It's a Ferrari.
Okay.
Okay. Anyways.
Iron Shamrock.
Right. All right, Spencer Iron Shamrock. So here's the thing. What we always try and tell people, and what we tell our clients, and what I tell like any students that are working with us, is that we're looking to get the dogs to listen to the training rather than the fear, anxiety, stress, aggression, whatever it might be. And that might sound like overly simplistic, but there's a real method in that. And that's like, if you'll really hold the dog accountable for all the behaviors that you train, whether it's heel, whether it's place, whether it's down, and you'll really make that dog accountable for holding and locking that position, and then you slowly bring them around things that make them uncomfortable. What you will do is you'll start to get the dog to prioritize the training over the fear. Now, if you don't hold them to that, if you allow them to get like, if you're on a walk and you're letting the dog kind of wander around or do its thing, or even do like a lot of like fearful quick head turning, scanning, stuff like that, you're gonna have a dog that's gonna be more freaked out and more geared up. I'd actually be correcting that stuff with the e-collar. I would be like, you walk right here, don't you freaking move, because I know if you do, because you're anxious and you're worried. I'm not gonna let you do that. I want you to listen to me, don't listen to this stuff in your head. A car goes by, hits the manhole, whatever. Now, there are some limitations. Some dogs have some pretty challenging nerve stuff and they're more touchy with it, but there's always improvements we can make. So that case of the car going by, if the dog tries to move out of position, correct, dog back in position. Or like if you see the car coming, put the dog in the sit, don't move from there. Right? It's the training overriding. You're slowly like kind of like replacing the software in your dog's mind with the software of like, I just listen to you. I don't listen to all the scary stuff going on in my head. So, and the same thing would go with place command for your big sound system. Train your dog place command if you haven't already done it. Hold your dog highly accountable to where they're not on e-collar. I think he's on e-collar, right? To where your dog's not allowed to move from that command, get that proof, get that rocking, and then start to bring things around him or around her that makes them nervous, makes them uncomfortable. Whether it's the vacuum, whether it's the sound system, whether it's knocking at the door, doesn't really matter. Find all the stuff, and then you were asking if flooding was something that was valuable in this, and it absolutely is, but flooding has to be done in a kind of methodical way. So you don't just like throw them in the deep end of the pool. You don't put them in place and then just like turn the stereo up all the way and like start vacuuming. You start like with the vacuum across the room and you enforce.
You vacuum off, just
right.
rolling by.
Better yet, right? Or the stereo low, whatever it is. But what you do is you say place command is your primary objective, right? That's where you stay. I don't care how scared you get. I want you to hang here. And what happens is the dog will slowly acclimate, absorb all this stuff, realize it's not going to die, realize nothing bad's going to happen, and will start to build more confidence and more tolerance of that stuff. So use the training, enforce it to prioritize what the dog listens to, thinks about, rather than the fear, anxiety, and all that stuff. Hope that helps.
Cool. Niels
Karstensen.
Okay.
He's what? He's Danish, right?
Must be. Question number 10. Niels says, "Hey, Sean and the lovely Laura, do you have any experience with what age to have a dog neutered? My retriever Rottie Dog de Bordeaux mix is nearing 6 months." That's good, right?
Yeah, nice work.
I almost said Bardukes.
Daisy Badukes.
Should I wait for her to have her first period? Thanks for any advice.
Pretty intimate questions there.
That's the question,
okay, Niels. So
he's like, why is that? He's like from Europe. He's like, that's like fine.
Right, come on, we can talk about that.
we
We're in
talk
Europe. We're
about
progressive, right? Don't be afraid in America, okay? So, hey,
I don't know what to say.
You're talking about bodily functions. I don't know. Neil, we pass on this question. So, anyways, Niels. So there's a lot of controversy and differing opinions about spaying and neutering, like straight out of the gate. I'll be really honest with you, and you can study a bunch of stuff, and you're going to find a lot of stuff that conflicts with other stuff, so or is at odds with other stuff. So this is a challenging one. When it comes to spaying and neutering ages, I haven't found conclusive evidence, and maybe there's somebody else who has, but I haven't found conclusive evidence about what exactly is the best thing. I know that there's pros and cons of different things, but here's what I have heard a ton from other trainers is that especially females that have been spayed too early, can lead to a lot of other issues, especially like incontinence stuff, right? So if the dog is spayed really early, they might develop incontinence stuff like straight away or down the line earlier than they would typically do. And that's something that's really a drag. So to be honest, here's the two things. I would love for you, because this is a heavy decision about your dog's life, I would love for you to get on that old internet and do a ton of research on your own and really try and like go through the full spectrum of like different opinions. You're gonna see people that are gonna be like, you're a monster if you do this, and you're gonna see people that are like, you better do it. And then really find your way through that and try and find what makes the most sense to you. Talk to your vet and really go through that. I wish I could give you a conclusive thing, but I'm not comfortable with saying this is what you should do. What I will say is that if it was my own dog, it was my own female, I probably wouldn't spay her until she was probably a year, right? You've got a big dog too. So there's also a lot of, conversations about spaying or neutering early having negative effects on body growth and growth plates and all that stuff. And once again, it's controversial. My two guys were neutered at 6 months. Belle was neutered probably around the same time, and none of them have any problems with any of that stuff, but that doesn't mean those problems don't go down. Right. So once again, I'm gonna put this one on you. I wish I was like the master of like definitive information with this, but I have some feelings about it and I know what I would do, but I'd like you to go out and do the work yourself to make sure that you're really comfortable about your choice.
Touchy stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to be responsible for your like, I went ahead and got my dog neutered or spayed.
Thanks, good dog.
And thanks, good dog. And now she pees everywhere, and I don't want that. So do your research, find out what you can find, and all that good stuff.
Year is a good. I mean, I've had to run the gamut. I'm pretty sure Herc was probably neutered at 6 months. I know Polar Bear was. Cujo's never been.
Yeah. Twice so misbehaved.
Yes, I'm so bad. No,
He's
but
humping everything in sight.
True.
in a loving fashion.
Yes. But yeah, and I've known it all over the map for lots of things, and just, yeah. But just do your research. We're done.
And just to close out,
Oh, yeah.
we got like, what time do I have to leave?
You
4?
have to, like, leave, like, in 5 minutes.
5 minutes,
To
guys.
get
Do you appreciate the kind of dedication going on here? I'm just blown away by the dedication. Anyways, so here for a couple days. Just shot new intro video for our website that we're redoing completely. Everything is going to be
video
like
stuff.
it's going to be spectacular.
Yep.
Some really great stuff. And then. I think everybody's been really enjoying your work with the 12 Days of Christmas.
Oh, 12 Days of
you know?
e-collar.
Yeah,
Yes.
12 Days of e-collar, Christmas Day, whatever it is.
Holiday.
So we kind of put this concept together of wanting to release pieces of information, and then this genius came up with a really nice little rhyme. And
the rhyme.
yeah, it's great.
We came up with it together.
Well, she did most of it. But the good news is that everybody seems to be really enjoying it, and you're getting a lot of really cool pieces of the DVD. So you're getting a lot of insight. It's not just like 10 seconds of it. We
Just
good?
checking battery. Yeah.
Okay. She's just very
Concerned about the battery.
right. That's why she always gets up. But it's not just like 10 seconds of the video. We're showing like some pretty good chunks of it, so you can get a good feel for what the content's really about.
And someone was like, "What if this is going to be like the whole DVD?" I was like, "It's 5
hours long.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
We could give away like 10 minutes a day, and
Yeah.
like for like 10
Three
days, it'd be
days,
okay.
yeah. So anyways, we're really excited, guys. The goal is, if all goes right, correct? If all goes right, Christmas Day release. Right? I said it. Christmas Day release, if all goes right technically. We've done all our work. It's kind of like out of our hands. Yeah, it's in God's hands. So we'll see what happens. But we're having a really good time just releasing these 12 Days of Christmas, and everybody seems to be having fun with it. So a big high five up to this
Good
girl
dog, high five.
who did awesome
For
work.
both of us, yep.
Yep. And
You've got a flight to catch.
I've got a flight, so I gotta get out of here.
Thanks, guys.
Always good to see you. Sorry this was such a quick, brief, but it might have been a fiery one. There might have been a
fiery.
little fiery because
Totally fiery.
we're like on edge, and
Yeah.
I know that I'm like, gotta get my behind out of here. Anyways, guys, we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon. All right?
All right, thanks. Bye.